Hello, everyone. Ginger here with another impromptu early Monday morning episode of Fighting the Void. And, we're just going to discuss a few sundries here again. First of all, if you caught my Periscope that I did the other day on the way home from work, I'm going to repeat some stuff here. So, sorry about that in advance. Also, a little housekeeping. Just to let you know, we are still working on the website. It is coming along slowly but surely. And I think it's going to be pretty good when it gets launched sometime in November. When exactly, again, depends a lot on work and when I am done working these crazy hours. I don't expect it to be. I think we're looking at the very end of October at best, pretty much. So we'll see how it all goes. Various things here. Okay, first we're going to start off with just some good news. I saw last week that Empire Strikes Back was getting a re-release. I'm like, that's cool, because it remains my favorite Star Wars movie and one of my favorite movies ever. It has what is perhaps not technically the best, but still my favorite lightsaber duel and my favorite battle in the entire Star Wars canon. And it got thinking, it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to. And also, it's the first movie I clearly remember seeing in the theaters. I remember clearly seeing Luke in Cloud City trying to save Han and Leia and Chewie. And I got thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to take the kids. And fortunately, because Her Majesty Whitmer has not yet allowed the theaters to open near us. Incidentally, she had October 9 apparently is the date right now when theaters will be allowed to reopen according to Her Majesty's decree. But drive-ins have remained open, and fortunately there's a drive-in not too far from my house that was in fact playing The Empire Strikes Back. There are numerous drive-ins within driving distance, so fortunately I had options. I picked one and off I went. And it was pretty cool. I'd never actually done a drive-in before. I've always lived near a movie theater. There was never any need for me to go to a drive-in. And I would probably go again. For one, it's cheap, relatively speaking. The tickets are a lot less. You can obviously bring your own snacks and everything, although we did purchase popcorn, which I don't know that I would do that again, because what they lack in ticket prices, they make up in concessions. Holy crap on a pogo stick, especially for a place that just has porta potties for bathrooms. Yeah. If you want my money, you're gonna have to if you want all that extra money for the concessions, you're gonna have to do a little bit more than porta potties for bathrooms. Anyway, the overall drive-in experience is pretty darn cool. I mean, you got the big giant screen, which is great. You get the sound through a radio station, which was, it's good if you are fine with staying in your car. That's fine. However, I have 6 kids, and I brought all of them, so they weren't all just sitting in the car, because they wouldn't all be able to see. Pretty much the driver, the passenger, and the row right behind. That's all that would actually be able to see anything. So a bunch of them, unless they crowd in. So for the first half to 3/4 of the movie, most of them were actually outside. So I rolled down the windows and cranked up the radio, which it worked out just fine. Then kind of, it got a little, gets a little wet or cold, and kids come in, and then they crowd, and it was fine. If I were to do it again in the future, I would again bring all my own snacks, not just beverages, so that I wouldn't have to still spend a small fortune between tickets and concessions. And I would also bring just a little battery operated radio, just so that we could all sit outside and stretch out, relax a little bit. I think that would overall be better. But, live and learn. First experience with a drive-in, and I asked at least one of the kids, and they seemed to enjoy it. Other kids just, a couple of the younger ones fell asleep while we were watching it, and it's just fine. And in any case, yeah, good experience, and Empire remains as awesome on the big screen as I remember it. So if you have the opportunity wherever it is that you live, go take advantage of the fact that Empire has got a re-release, and go see it on the big screen. For crying out loud, if you're young and you've never seen Empire Strikes Back on the big screen, I assure you, you are missing out. For older people like me, it's fair warning. It is a special edition, though fortunately, I think Empire changed the least in a special edition. So anyway, there's that. What else? I mentioned tasers in the title. This is the big thing. This is a big item for me from the last week. And again, this I'm repeating for my live stream on Saturday morning on the way home, or Sunday morning, I'm sorry, on the way home from work. But there was apparently she was a young mom. I thought she was like the teenage daughter of the older lady. No, it turns out she's probably in her 20s or something, and had one or two kids along with her, and they were all watching the football game at some school in Ohio. I don't know exactly where, but she wasn't wearing a mask. Turns out, because she has asthma, kind of important. Anyway, a random cop decides to single her out, and keep in mind, she's sitting in the middle of her family. They're very socially distanced from everybody around. Cop, for some reason, decides to pick on her and arrest her for the high crime of not wearing a mask. This escalates so much that, because the girl's like, no, you're not arresting me. I'm sitting here watching a football game. Leave me alone, is basically how it goes. And in any case, it escalates to the point that the dude tases her. Tases this young mom for not wearing a mask. Well, to be fair, at that point, he's tasing her for resisting arrest. If you want to be technical, that's what was going on there. However, he tases her on a metal bleacher, incidentally, and how does the taser work? Electricity. What conducts electricity? Metal. So one of her kids also got tased. Accidentally, but even so. And of course, everybody in the stands is sitting around and watching that. Some are commenting. Some are just trying to pretend that it's not even happening. And this really caused me a lot of consternation throughout the week as I thought about it. And I got, how do you resist? How do you fight back against this sort of thing? Because I definitely don't think sitting there and pretending nothing is going on is the right answer. I think that's wrong. But okay, what are the alternatives, right? Alternatives are, of course, and I'll come back to something else here in a minute. No, actually, I'll address it now. Should the girl have just said, okay, calmly said, I have asthma, here's my medical thing. Or, if you want, I will happily provide my medical thing for you. If the cop insists, okay, ma'am, I am going to need you to come down to the station, fine, you just go and say, look, I've got asthma, you can call my doctor. That probably would have been the smartest thing for her. I mean, her kids would have been fine, they would have been with her mom, and all of that. Now, the cop was wrong, don't get me wrong. The cop was definitely wrong. This is an unjust mandate, and no cop should be enforcing it. Given the circumstances, they probably should have went along and, calmly explained the situation and why it does not, in fact, apply to her. And then you go and you fight this thing tooth and nail. Excuse me a moment. There I go. Yeah, dang Rona. Anyway, so okay, that aside, as far as what the young mom should have done, what should the people in the stands have done? On the face of it, it seems like there are only two choices. It seems like pretend nothing is happening, which is what most people were doing apparently. The other choice would seem to be that you go and physically stop the cop from arresting her, de-arrest her, to coin the term from the Portland riots. And to be fair, I think that's justified. The cop is wrong in attacking this girl for doing nothing wrong. It is, and it's an unjust law, and it should be resisted. As long as you're doing it with the intention of protecting the girl and not attacking the cop, I think you're fine from a moral standpoint. However, it's not necessarily wise. Because what's going to happen? What's going to happen is he's going to call for backup. A whole bunch of people are going to get arrested after they've already been hurt. Probably some people are going to get in the hospital, so on and so forth. And there's other ripple effects that would go on from that. Not to mention, you make it harder to draw the distinction between being anti-mask and being a rioter. Now, I think there's still plenty of distinction to be made. I think for anyone who's paying attention and can use their brain cells, I don't think it's difficult. However, it still winds up being, it would get used. It would get used to say, well, see, you're just like them and everything, so what are you complaining about? That's how it would get used. It's not right, but that's what would happen. It's the world we live in. So, what should you do? If it's wrong to pretend nothing is happening, and if it's perhaps justifiable but imprudent to go and punch a cop in the face, what should you do? I got thinking about it, and I got thinking of the various non-violent movements that have accomplished significant goals throughout the course of history. There's of course Gandhi helping to get independence for India from the British Empire. You've got Nelson Mandela, who eventually took the path of non-resistance. He didn't always, but he finally did. It's the path of non-violence, I'm sorry. And that is what ended apartheid in South Africa, which that's a crap show now, but different conversation. You've got the Solidarity movement in Poland that helped bring down the Soviet Union and communism in Eastern Europe. You've got, oh goodness, I just had another one in mind, but, the abolitionist movement. Well, there was that whole Civil War thing now, wasn't there? But they actually made a lot of headway before that happened. And I think if it wasn't for the southern states trying to secede from the Union, I think that they would have won. But in any case, it's not actually a good example at all. So, how does that apply here? I think what should have happened is that everybody in those stands should have taken their masks off, and said, "Here, you got enough handcuffs for me? You got enough handcuffs for all of us? Because if you're gonna arrest her, you have to arrest us all." Now maybe they do. Maybe they do arrest you all, or maybe only one of you. Maybe you're the only one that stands up. Maybe you're the only one who takes her mask off and offers to go with her to jail. Well, fine. You're the only one. Or they do arrest you all. Fine. But think about the message that sends. It says you are willing. You are willing to go to jail for this. You are willing to stand up for what you believe. You are willing to volunteer yourself to go with somebody else. This isn't just the path of nonviolence. This is literally the path of Christ. You're willing to join this other person who you may or may not know. Probably do, given small town, but say it's another situation. You may or may not know the person. You're willing to do that. You're willing to do that perhaps for a total stranger, or at least somebody perhaps that you're not close with. That sends a message not just to the cop doing the arresting. It sends a message to everyone else at the police station. It sends a message to the town. It will, something like that, I guarantee you, will go viral through social media like crazy. Because it shows, and this isn't a matter of it looking good for PR. It does. But that's not the point. The point is that it is a path of non-resistance, and it's a path that could potentially show the best results. No one gets hurt. The message gets sent that there are people who are willing to sacrifice themselves for this, and not demand that means other people have to get hurt in the process. It allows you to resist without having to be violent. Now, obviously, that's going to be something that you have to figure out if you want to do individually or not, because getting arrested is still getting arrested, still might suck. But I would encourage you to think about it, or to think of other alternatives. I'd be happy to hear them. But just recording it and putting it on social media doesn't cut it, except as a way to help other people try to come up with alternatives. So I guess think on that. What would you do? What would you do if somebody who lives a few doors down is getting arrested for not wearing a mask, whether it's at a football game or at a store or whatever? In some places, so much as walking down the street. What would you do? I want you to really think about that, pray about that. And I think it's there that I'm going to leave it. This is a short one tonight, but that was the biggest thing I wanted to talk about, because the other things have happened, and I could, but plenty of people have already said everything that there is to say about Amy Coney Barrett and the RBG situation, and I don't want to just talk about riots all the time. It gets boring, much as I hate to say it, as odd as it is to say. So, until next time, pray, prepare for whatever, and